Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call the October meeting of the Washington County Quorum Court to order. This evening, we've asked Justice Hires to lead us in the prayer and pledge. Justice Hires, will you cue your mic?
Thank you. Please bow your head. As we gather tonight as members of the Washington County Quorum Court, we pray that we are ever mindful of the opportunity to serve our community. Please grant us the wisdom to make the best decisions and help us set aside our personal agendas and allow us to represent the people of Washington County to the best of our abilities. In these words we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Justice Hires. With that, we're going to move on to the adoption of the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda? If not, I'll take a motion to accept the agenda.
Motion to accept the agenda. Second.
I have a motion to adopt the agenda by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Dean. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Next, are there any preliminary motions? Justice Dean?
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to make a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only.
I have a motion to read all ordinances and resolutions by title only by Justice Dean. Second. I have a second by Justice Washington. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? We will read all ordinances and resolutions by title only. Item number 5 is our citizen comment period. We have a county ordinance that establishes public comments. We have a 15-minute public comment period with a limit of 3 minutes per person. Are there any public comments to open the meeting with? Yeah, you need to hit the right button, I think, if you will. There you go.
Thank you, Judge. Diana Scott, Fayetteville, Illinois. That's where I grew up, Fayetteville, Arkansas. First of all, I'd like to apologize to the court. Having sent an email last night and a follow-up this morning, I accidentally conflated two topics, and I apologize for that. It caused some confusion, apparently, and just my civic engagement was a little muddled there. But there's two items I'd like to speak to. The first item involves the FOIA request, the issue with J.P. Koger's case. And I have attended this court now several times and watched it unfold. I've tried to understand the history of it. In my personal experience, when I have made a mistake, it's hard to admit it. But when I do, when I am found dead to rights and I make the amends necessary, I can move on. And what I'm observing in this court with the JPs involved is twice it has been found that they are in the wrong and they should pay. And yet they refuse to do so, and they want to carry it to a third opinion. I find that very stubborn and non-productive. The other issue involves the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, and I'd like to ask if there's going to be a separate public comment period when that comes before us tonight. I will wait to make my comments then. Will I be allowed to come back up at that time?
On what topic?
The Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee.
There's nothing on the agenda about that tonight, so you've got 1 minute left.
The suspension of the committee.
Correct?
Is not going to be discussed tonight.
No.
Well, I would like to voice my opinion that resumption of that committee's operations is crucial to a healthy community, and those assembled this evening need to think very carefully about pretrial services and the good they bring to the community. That can't go forward as long as that committee is suspended. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comments?
Good evening, Judge Deakins and members of the Quorum Court. My name is Mike Landry. I live in JP District 1. There has been a lot of talk lately about freedom of information in Arkansas. As a recovering journalist and having worked under freedom of information laws in other states, I'd like to make a few comments. I have no problem if you vote yes or no tonight on the FOIA resolution. If you vote yes, you endorse the spirit of transparency. If you vote no, you think FOIA may have some need for major improvement. As a detail in the resolution, I would endorse amending periodic training for custodians of records to a requirement that they be reasonably familiar with the latest Freedom of Information Handbook published by the State Attorney General's Office. Whichever way you vote, I think we all know there are some needed changes in Arkansas FOIA. The current FOIA exempts unpublished memoranda, working papers, and correspondence of the governor, the legislature, the courts of appeals, the state Supreme Court, and the Attorney General. Now, this is a reasonable exemption, and it should be expanded to officials at all levels of Arkansas government, including cities and counties. Also, there should be added exemptions from the open meetings law. These should be for real estate negotiations and for litigation, and this should be at all levels of Arkansas government. In addition, normal attorney-client privileges should be assured for all levels of Arkansas government. Now, there is at least one new FOIA provision regarding state officials' security, and I think that needs more accountability on the part of the state, but that is not yet relevant to Washington County. Also, I do not favor a constitutional amendment for FOIA, but a needed reform is the institution of stiffer penalties for FOIA violations. I think that would solve a lot of our problems. Finally, I would like to commend Washington County for once again being recognized by the Arkansas Center for Research and Economics at the University of Central Arkansas as the most web-transparent county in the state. This is the fourth time in a row that Washington County has been on top, although other counties are joining in, and for the latest report in 2022, Washington County tied for first with Benton County and Craighead County. Categories for the web ratings were in areas of fiscal, administrative, and political transparency. So congratulations to all of the officials of Washington County, and thank you for your hard work and your transparency. As I said earlier, voting either way tonight on tonight's FOIA resolution is fine. I'm sure we're going to be having more discussions of this in the future. It is an issue needing common sense balance between the public's right to know and the realities of effectively getting work done in an organization. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Landry. Public comments.
My name is Bobby Huffines. I live at 20039 Santa Rosa Drive in Springdale, Arkansas. I attended the last Quorum Court meeting, and I walked away with the feeling, and it seems to have multiplied, that there's not a real clear understanding of FOIA. And after I talked to the Attorney General's office, they've gladly provided me with these little handbooks. This happens to be the 20th edition, so it's not a new law, but it does incorporate all the changes up to that point in time. I would like to pass these out, if that's acceptable by this court, to each one of you.
Mr. Huffines, you can put them back there on that podium. I can guarantee you that we've handed those already out to the Quorum Court when they started their term, though.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure everybody had an opportunity to understand what we were talking about here. And some comments last week about, well, we're just gonna let the court tell us what it says, kind of made me wonder, did we not introduce this information to all the JPs on this board? And I guess you say we have, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Public comments.
My name is Lou Reed Sharp. I live at 1739 Steel Road, Tawnytown, Arkansas. And I wanted to address two things. I wanted to address the suspension of the CJCC, the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, and the FOIA resolution coming before tonight. I mean, I've been following the court for 4 or 5 years now, and it just seems to me, as an outsider looking in, the CJCC committee has finally been working pretty well together, and we've made good progress with the mental health courts, with pretrial services. I've heard Sheriff Cantrell talk about AA meetings and different things to help with the overcrowding. And and now I've heard that the CJCC was established by ordinance, and some people think it was an advisory committee. I just implore this body to look for a solution. This committee is actually working. And, if it was established by ordinance, I don't know, you can just shut it down without changing an ordinance. If it was established by an advisory committee, just reappoint it and move forward. So I know there's issues that are needing to be looked at, but it just appears that this committee has been making good progress with trying to address jail overcrowding. With FOIA, FOIA's been a lot. We all want transparency and accountability. I think it's interesting, and I hope you all will support the resolution supporting FOIA tonight. I think it's interesting that, in fact, one of the FOIA lawsuits involved the CJCC and whether it was a public committee or not, and the courts ruled that it was. So I don't know whether it was established by ordinance. I know it's working. They've been meeting very effectively since 2021. So if you start with that date, because the previous administration, it really wasn't meeting, then they'd still be within their 3-year terms. So that's all I have to say, and I hope you all will consider those favorably. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comments?
Hi, Sherry Main, 15451 Riches Road, Fayetteville. And I just wanted to comment on a couple of things. I echo a lot of stuff that Lou said, but on the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee, I was saddened by the email from the judge that was going to be put on hold. And it is a committee. It's set up by ordinance, and the members are appointed by the judge. And as a committee only, it doesn't need to be confirmed by the members on the committee. It doesn't have to be confirmed by the quorum court. This stumbled upon oversight of expired terms should be corrected as soon as possible by Judge Deakins, so this committee can continue the task of reducing the jail population by pretrial services. This is a major setback to this committee. They have been working hard, and they were just on groundbreaking on the pretrial services to do a presentation, ask for money for the pretrial services with their last meeting. So I know that it's very important we don't delay this any longer than what is necessary, and they can get back to work on this long ordeal they've been working on to get something resolved, so we can actually see some fruit from their labor. That would be very good. And I wanted to also comment on something else on the agenda tonight, which is on the additional money for the FOIA lawsuits for the attorney. Washington County has 2 staff attorneys. They have an attorney and then they have a deputy attorney, and making over $200,000. And I don't understand why, if we have 2 very skilled, educated attorneys on staff, why we have to hire outside sources of attorneys. If one is in the lawsuit and mentioned, the other one can certainly fill in. May not be an expert trial lawyer, but they're working for Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments?
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Nunez. I live in East Fayetteville, Zion Road. I think it merits more discussion about the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. I know that you said that we're not going to we're gonna talk on that, but I think by demobilizing the CJCC, you're canceling all the work that they've done in the last 3 years, and you're taking away the single most important tool that can bring forward justice reform in our county. I think by refusing to appoint or reappoint members to the CJCC, you're taking away alternatives to incarceration that the people of Washington County have made clear that they want to see. The proposed jail expansion was defeated last November by a strong margin. Why aren't you listening to the community, the taxpayers? Why aren't you listening to us? If we expand this jail, like it does nothing to improve our community. It doesn't do anything to improve our county. And I think that by taking away committees like the CJCC, you're actually hurting us. Thank you.
Public comments. We've got 1 minute remaining.
The comment, Gladys Tiffany, Fayetteville. The comment I'd like to make is about the way the CJCC actually was operating. I attended several times and was really impressed to see how they actually were communicating across departments and across offices in a very interesting way that opened up a lot of discussion between them that I think was really valuable in and of itself, no matter what was going on with the goals that they set. And I think that there was a lot of that going on the entire time they were operating, that it may not be quite as apparent about the benefit that brought Washington County, but I think there was a lot that was going on that really could have been continued and helped us in the communication between departments that I think is a crucial piece of everything flowing smoothly.
Thank you. Right on time. And with that, public comment, the period has expired. And with that, we're going to move on to item number 6. You have received a copy of the minutes from last month's meeting. Are there any corrections to the minutes? If not, those will stand as accepted. Seeing none, we'll move on. Item number 7 is the county judge's report. First off, I'd like to thank once again the staff of Washington County Cooperative Extension Service for tonight's refreshments and beverages. That's always really appreciated. I hope those individuals know how much that means to us to come down here, and as their meetings wear on, that the supply of food diminishes pretty quickly. So that's always very, very welcome. I also want to mention that the disposal report is in your packet for your review that we issue every month. Finally, I have some great news for our office, probably some hard news for you guys, is that we have accepted Ms. Mason's application to replace Ms. Julie in my office as our executive assistant for the judge's office. So she's excited to step into a new challenge, and she will continue to support you guys in your work in the interim and while we make some transitions, and then we will, of course, put that title back out for some interest and some applications. And with that, I want to really thank Ms. Julie Harris for all of her dedicated work to the county and to the judge's office. Those who know Julie professionally have seen what she's brought to this county over the years. We are very appreciative of this and appreciative of that. And what those who know her personally know how selfishly she serves other people. And for that, I will always be thankful. You might have heard, but Ms. Julie won her campaign to become the president of the National Federation of Republican Women. And so she has moved on to greater challenges and will try to start representing Washington County and Arkansas at the national level for the principles she believes in. So Julie, I really want to give you a heartfelt thank you for all you've done for Washington County. You will be missed. Yep. With that, I just want to give you guys an update. After last week's meeting representing the budget, I want you to know that we're working together. Predominantly, me and Sheriff Cantrell are working together to see what we can bring to improve those numbers and get something in front of you guys that hopefully can get widespread support from you and serves our citizens well over the next budgetary year. I really want to say that Comptroller Stories put a lot of work into that. I know we highlight him every meeting. It's been a very big lift, and so want to continue to call him out and give him very big kudos for what he's done for our county in this whole process. I'm excited about next year. You know, we're laying building blocks for future years on how to make this more efficient and more transparent. I will also reiterate and say to you ladies and gentlemen on this horseshoe that it's never the budget that gets us in trouble. It's never the budget we pass. It's the 1,000 things we do throughout the year after we get that budget passed, the new spending we hang on that budget. And what I want you guys to know is whatever we bring you, those numbers will still be tight. And we are counting on your help throughout next year to keep us fiscally disciplined and make sure that we're adhering to what we promised to do this year in the budget. And I'm saying that as an elected official who may need you guys to help me be fiscally disciplined. So it's just a requirement. We all need to keep each other accountable, and so we need to remember that throughout next year that the budget numbers are tight. I think there's some great things in there for Washington County. We're making some very key investments in some very key areas, but it's going to be tight. It's hard to keep up with the growth that we're seeing and keep our infrastructure and our peace officers all up to scale, that kind of stuff, and investing in our infrastructure to prepare for this huge growth that we're seeing all the time. CJCC, I'm here to clear some things up tonight. And this is a difficult subject, and I can tell you right now, I'm going to open this up by saying all of our work in the criminal justice area needs to be professional, it needs to be trustworthy, and it needs to be transparent. The worst thing we can do in criminal justice in anything that we decide on is make this a political football. And unfortunately, it's headed straight down that track if it's not already there. So I want to say this about me. I realize that I'm a political figure and that there's some people who are never going to agree with me, but let me make you this promise. I say what I mean. And so what I want citizens to do is when I say something, please have patience. Let me follow through with it. And the CJCC is a big example of that. So I have no choice but to make sure we as a county are operating under the letter of the law. And when we're in violation of the law, I have no choice but to correct that. And I think nobody should be able to debate that or argue that. It's very clear that the members of the CJCC, through no fault of anyone, were outside of their statutory terms. I have no choice but to correct that. That correction takes time. I can't do that overnight, okay? So all these lies, and they are very much lies, that I have abolished that committee, that we're going to do away with it, those are all untrue. And I've never said that, and I don't know how that even gets legs to run around, lies like that. But such is the world that we live in. So I want to say we are not disbanding the group. It was never said. It was never my intention. That was never the point of any of this. The CJCC, if nothing else, will need to continue as an advisory group because we are obligated to do that, to host this crisis stabilization unit. And as the terms of the new grant that we received for the mental health court that I'm very excited about, we also have to have an advisory board for that group. And so it will always be around in some semblance. Now, where I think people get cross is what's the future of that group look like? And what I have said is that the meaningful reforms that we've made this year, none of those have come from the CJCC. And so I think we are 7 years into a process that we need to be very self-reflective about and decide if that's the right group to make progress for this county. I'm not going to apologize for making those statements. It's time for us to be very self-reflective about some of those things. We've got a lot of work to do with the CJCC. It's going to be very critical to us. And I've been very clear, too, about the solutions that we find in criminal justice. We have the funds for that already that the taxpayers are willing to give us. And we need to find solutions with what we already have. This budget work that we're doing right now, Washington County, in the criminal justice realm, whether that be the deputies that patrol our streets or the courts that adjudicate our justice, spends around $48 million a year in that arena. That is almost $1 million a week. We were told very clearly by the taxpayers of Washington County last November that we have the funds that they are willing to give us and we need to solve these problems. So any solutions that we can find that we can operate within our current budgets and find efficiencies. What we currently have is where we need to head. And I'm very much a believer of that. I know those solutions exist, and we're not pursuing them. And that's what's going to be my goal with the CJCC or anything that we move forward with in the future. Construction update. And tonight's going to focus on our Washington County Jail Quarantine Project. We last month selected Nab Holtz as our construction manager for that project. I am extremely excited about the experience and the expertise that Nab Holtz is going to bring to this project. It also helps they have a very good local presence and some great relationships with local subcontractors, and so I'm looking very much forward to that. I have to also report that Spirit Architecture has abandoned our county and our jail project, and so we are going to reissue an RFQ to solicit responses for a new architect for that project. What I'll say is that this is a setback to the schedule, but we have released that RFQ, and we're going to try to get a new architect on board as soon as possible. And you know, I'm disappointed, but the way I look at it is I can't stand quitters. And if Spirit Architecture wanted to quit on us, we're all the better for it that we've recognized it at this state and that we're going to get new people on board to help us out with this project. So stay tuned for that. Lastly, we have some board vacancies that we need to make appointments to. The first one is we have a vacancy on the Board of Equalization. Jackie Perry Ryan of Washington County has expressed interest in that. Jackie is a commercial real estate agent, so she has some knowledge and some working skills in that arena. And so we're very excited to try to put her on that board and have her serve our county. And then also we have 2 appointments to the Washington Water Authority Board. The first one being Michael Butch Bartholomew of West Fork. Mr. Bartholomew has a lot of years' experience in both waterworks and sewer. He's also very much involved in the state agencies with rural water, and so I'm excited to have his expertise here on this. And then lastly, we have another appointment. Larry Walker of Prairie Grove has agreed to serve us on the Washington Water Board. If you recall, Mr. Walker currently serves us on the Rural Development Authority Board. He's submitted his resignation subject to moving down to this board and helping us out here. Mr. Walker has a successful company. He's very involved in the community in Prairie Grove. I'm excited to have him show interest in this. I'm sure you can understand that a lot of these appointments, they're volunteer, much like you guys' job is, and so it's difficult to find great applicants, and I think these are a couple, well, these 3 are all great applicants for the boards that the respective boards they're wanting to serve. So I need a motion to accept those.
Never mind. I'd like to make a motion to approve all 3 nominees, Judge.
Okay. Motion. I'll take the motion of Justice Pond. I'll let Justice Ecke second it if that's okay. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? We have 3 new appointments to our boards. I very much appreciate for that. You're not recognized right now. I realize that. I'm telling you, you're not recognized right now. All right, we're going to move on to the new business of our unfinished business. Item number 8. Counselor, you read that by title only. Item number 8 is on the second reading.
An ordinance denying a conditional use permit recommended for denial by the Zoning Board of Adjustments for the Beaver Lake Tiny Homes.
Justice Lyons?
I'd like to make a motion, we suspend the rules and move this to the 3rd and final reading.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and move this to the 3rd and final reading by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Dean. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. Item will move forward. Counselor, will you read this item for a 3rd and final time?
An ordinance denying a conditional use permit recommended for denial by the Zoning Board of Adjustments for the Beaver Lake Tiny Homes project.
Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. So, again, go through this 3rd reading. My basic stance is that we should not approve this. We should approve the denial. We should not approve the appeal. Couple of reasons is, you know, we look at an email, which I believe was in everybody's packet, from a James McCarty, Environmental Quality Manager for Beaver Lake, to Director Ada, basically voicing concerns about the septic system, the way it's set up, and the risk of it overflowing, it being too large of a capacity for that area, too close to the lake, and if it overflowed into the lake because there was nothing keeping it from doing so, which I believe goes against Section 9A6, talking about the cup not being injurious. Second reason is the plan, as I understand it, as the packet came from the planning board, was to put 27 homes on 4.82 acres. This results in 0.18 acres per home, which is not the Washington County standard and violates the Washington County ordinances that requires a minimum of 1 acre for each home. Which again, in my opinion, violates the 9A4, which is the compatibility. All the other homes in the area are 1 acre per home, so this is not compatible with the other homes in the area from that point of view. So from that point of view, I will be supporting the denial of this appeal.
If I missed it, I apologize. Did I have a motion?
A motion to
Pass.
pass the denial.
Pass item number 8.1. I have a motion to pass item number 8.1 by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Dean. Any further discussion or comments on the item? Any public comments on item number 8.1? Public comments? Seeing none, we're going to take up the question. I have a motion to pass item 8.1 to the full quorum court. I have a motion to pass item 8.1 by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Dean. Before we have Ms. Mason call the roll, I'll just clarify. A yes vote on this is a denial of the CUP. The ordinance is a denial of the CUP, so a yes vote will deny it. Ms. Mason, will you please call the roll?
Suki Hires. Yes. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Gary Ricker. Yes, ma'am. Butch Pond. Yes, ma'am. Coleman Taylor. Yes. David Wilson. Yes. Sean Simons. Yes, Kyle Lyons. Yes, Lisa Ecke. Yes. Charles Dean. Yes, Chandra Washington. Yes. Beth Koger. Yes. Robert Dennis.
Item number 8 carries. Item number 9, Counselor, will you read this ordinance by title only? I will remind the group this is on its second reading.
An ordinance amending the county attorney's budget for 2023.
I'm sorry, Justice Pond, will you reactivate your mic? Justice Pond.
Move to suspend the rules and put this on the third and final reading.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and move this to the third and final reading by Justice Pond. I believe I heard second by Justice Lyons. Is there any discussion? No discussion, I'm sorry. That Counselor Lester has corrected me. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. Ms. Mason, will you please call a roll? This is on the motion to suspend the rules and move this to a third and final reading.
Suki Hires. No. Evelyn Rios Stafford. No. Willie Lemming. Yes. Gary Ricker.
Yes, ma'am.
Butch Pond.
Yes, ma'am.
Coleman Taylor.
Yes.
David Wilson.
Yes.
Sean Simons. Yes, Kyle Lyons. Yes, Lisa Ecke. Yes. Charles Dean. Yes, Chandra Washington. No. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
That motion carries. Counselor, will you read that for a third and final time?
An ordinance amending the county attorney budget for 2023.
Move to pass 9.1.
I have a motion to pass item number 9 by Justice Pond, second by Justice Lyons. Any further discussion on the item by the group? Oh, sorry. Justice Hires?
Yes, thank you, Judge. I'm still really struggling with the fiscal responsibility of this decision. We've just heard that the budgets are tight. We need to operate under our current budget. And I wanted to ask, what grounds are we appealing these cases on? Thank you.
So I think that you know, as far as the appeal is concerned, that's a matter that's under consideration. We don't typically talk about pending matters, but I will also point out that there is more to, we have more than just J.P. Coger's lawsuits in the county that require outside help. We've got a lawsuit pending out of Pennsylvania. I'm not licensed in Pennsylvania. Ms. Baker's not licensed in Pennsylvania. And so I hope you all understand that this is not all about one or two lawsuits. So we've seen an uptick in litigation costs this year alone, which is very different than before. But I think right now I have probably close to 10 CUP appeals that I'm handling to the circuit court. So we have seen an uptick in costs, and this is about more than just one case that's on appeal right now.
Justice Coger?
Yes, there was an email that I saw on the county website, Mr. Lester, that I took it to, that you are only appealing now one of my FOIA lawsuits. Is that correct?
Again, I don't think this is the time or place to have a conversation about your case, which as an ethical responsibility, you probably should back off to here at this meeting.
I'm just asking, I just want to be clear if it was one or two.
Okay, just a second. We're going to bring this back to order. I want to remind everybody you're to address your comments and questions to the chair. Okay? Thank you. Any additional debate? Justice Pond?
I'm gonna, maybe I'm saying the same thing that the county attorney said in a maybe a more country boy fashion. We don't have any business trying to hold court on any of these issues here at this horseshoe. I've been told very strongly by attorneys in the past, we don't hold court on issues that have been taken to the judiciary branch of government. As a matter of fact, that, you know, we could be liable for such a thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Pond. Any further discussion? I'll just say, I want to say something in defense of my office. I find Counselor Lester and Counselor Baker to be very pleasant people to work with, but they would not be here unless it was a necessity. And that's just the world we live in. With that, I'm going to open it up to public comments. Public comments on item number 9.
Hi again, Jonathan Nunez, District 9. I just want to talk to you guys and have a really frank conversation because it's one thing for the quorum court to sit there and take the high road and say, you know, this isn't the venue or this isn't germane to the discussion that we're having here today. But I've seen some of the members of this quorum court celebrate certain votes, like jump out of their chair and celebrate. I've seen some of you bully and like it's kind of embarrassing watching you guys quibble over Robert's rules and parliamentary procedure as a taxpayer. And it's really, really sad to see that my elected officials are sitting up in this horseshoe acting like children. That's all I got to say. I'm extremely disappointed.
Thank you. Public comments.
Sherry Main, 15451 Riches Road, Fayetteville. I just wanted to say real quick, it concerns me that this is for 2023 budget, additional 20,000. I mean, what's 2024 going to hold? If we've got several lawsuits that the attorneys now are juggling, 10 approximately, and who knows what else we'll have. I'm just really concerned with the budget this next year. It's unsustainable and it's just outrageous, and we don't even have ask yet. This is just the bare bones. So I think we need to keep that in mind as well when the asks come back for more money in 2024. Thanks.
Public comments.
Thank you. My name is Beth Koger. I live at 3661 East Embry Drive in Fayetteville. I just want to say to the people who might be watching this who don't know that the reason I will abstain is because I've been advised to do that by the Arkansas Ethics Commission and by my attorney. But my first FOIA lawsuit was just to get access to the JSAT meetings. All the county had to do was post that online. Then I filed a FOIA request for information, and they weren't answered. So, in my second lawsuit, I was just trying to get access to the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee. So that's what my lawsuits are about, and I will be abstaining for those reasons.
Public comments.
Hi, Gracie. I live off Poplar Street in Fayetteville. I'm going to keep this really brief. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, let's try again. Hi, I'm Gracie. I live right off Poplar Street here in Fayetteville.
He wants your full name.
Oh, Gracie Foreman.
Thank you.
Yep. I'm going to keep this brief as I can now, and just say I want to echo what the past two speakers say, especially about sustainability of the budget moving forward. And I also want to pose a rhetorical question and ask, what preventative measures are we taking to avoid lawsuits in this county? And I think those preventative measures we could take are a whole lot cheaper than the actions we're taking now. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comments. Seeing none, Ms. Mason, please call the roll.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. Coleman Taylor. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Kyle Lyons. Lisa Ecke. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis.
Item number 9 carries. With that, we're going to move to item number 10. Counselor, will you read that by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board for the Myers Boys Garage CUP project.
Item number 10 is on its third and final reading. Justice Taylor? Sorry, just a second. I got to... Just a second. I got to let my computer catch up. Justice Taylor?
Thank you, Judge. This ordinance is on its third and final reading. Seems to be pretty down the middle, no real issues that I've seen with it. And I move that we pass item number 10.
I have a motion to pass item number 10 by Justice Taylor, a second by Justice Lyons. Any further discussion on item number 10? Any public comments on item number 10? Seeing none, I have a motion to pass item number 10 by Justice Taylor, a second by Justice Lyons. Ms. Mason, will you please call the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. Coleman Taylor. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Kyle Lyons. Lisa Ecke. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis.
Item number 10 carries. With that, we'll move to item number 11, which is our consent agenda. We have 6 items on the consent agenda this evening. Counsel, will you read those by title only?
Item 1 is an ordinance providing for the establishment of a flood damage prevention program for Washington County, Arkansas, and for other purposes. Item 2 is an ordinance anticipating and appropriating additional grant funds in the Drug Court Grant Fund budget for 2023. Item 3 is an ordinance allocating previously unallocated funds in the Drug Court Grant Fund totaling $129,433.57 to the SAMHSA budget for 2023. Item 4 is an ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $77,520 in the U.S. Department of Energy Grant Fund for 2023 and other matters. Item 5 is an ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $550,000. Item 6 is an ordinance anticipating additional revenue in the amount of $2,878.88 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund.
Justice Lyons?
Make a motion, we pass the consent agenda.
I have a motion to pass the consent agenda by Justice Lyons. I believe I heard second by Justice Ricker. Is that correct, sir? I'm trying to spread the wealth tonight. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda? Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to thank you for putting the Washington County, Arkansas, for the flood damage prevention. I've sat on court and heard different engineers, different professional people come in and talk. And one of the most impressive ones that I heard was when they said how much rain or runoff comes from one house. And then when you take our growth in Washington County and multiply that by that amount of runoff water, we're really ready for some big floods that are going to do a lot of damage, because so many houses have been built, but we haven't kept up with the infrastructure as far as the streams to carry the water off. And I can remember, and I live up on a hill, and I can remember years ago we had a 10-inch rain, and you couldn't get to my house any direction. I mean, Walnut Grove is where I live, and I'm up high. It wasn't a matter of where I was, it was what was around me. And it flooded unbelievably. I mean, it really did. And we're due a good flood, and we've had thousands and thousands of new houses, and that's a tremendous amount of water runoff. And I appreciate all the builders and the people who put in housing additions, that put in the retention ponds, but many times those retention ponds fill up in that first 30 minutes. And so then you have the spillover, and then that runs downstream. And it's the people downstream that are the ones that really get the bad floods. So I think this was very wise, and I appreciate you doing it, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Dennis. Any other comments on the consent agenda? Any public comments on any items on the consent agenda? With that, we're going to take up the question. I had a motion to pass the consent agenda by Justice Lyons, a second by Justice Ricker. Ms. Mason, will you please call the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. Coleman Taylor. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Kyle Lyons. Lisa Ecke. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis.
Counselor Lester just brought something to my attention. All these are appropriation ordinances with the exception of the floodplain ordinance, which is item number 1. So what we will do is I will entertain a motion to move. All items 2 through 6 have passed with that vote. I would entertain a motion on item number 1 to suspend the rules and move it to a second reading. Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and advance this to a second reading.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and move it to the second reading by Justice Ecke, second by Justice Dean. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Counselor, will you read item number 1 on the consent agenda one more time, or for the second time?
An ordinance providing for the establishment of a flood damage prevention program for Washington County, Arkansas, and for other purposes.
Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to make a motion and to pass item number 1.
Third reading.
Third reading, advance it to the third reading. Third and final.
I have a motion by Justice Ecke to move item 11.1 to the third and final reading. Second by Justice Dean. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Counselor, will you read that for the third and final time?
An ordinance providing for the establishment of a flood damage prevention program for Washington County, Arkansas, and for other purposes.
Now, I'd like to make a motion, Judge, to pass item number 1 on 11.1.
Motion to pass item 11.1 by Justice Ecke, a second by Justice Lyons. Any further discussion? Any public comments on that item? I'll accept public comments on the one. Seeing none, Ms. Mason, will you please call the roll?
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. Coleman Taylor. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Kyle Lyons. Lisa Ecke. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis.
That item passes. Next up is item number 12.1. Counselor, will you read that by title only?
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $101,820 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating said $101,820 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the SCAP FY 2022 budget for 2023.
Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. This is a grant that the county has been receiving for many, many years, even before I joined the court in 2015. And it is for small equipment and training and education. And in no way does it have anything to do with targeting the immigrant community. So I'd like to make a motion to pass.
Second.
I have a motion to pass item number 12 by Justice Ecke, a second by Justice Lyons. Further discussion by the court. Justice Koger?
Thank you, Judge, for recognizing me. In the past conversations we've had about SCAP, it's been explained by the Sheriff's Office that this grant is paying the county back for individuals that would be held in the jail regardless of the fact that they were identified and further examined due to their immigrant status. My concern has always been and has always stemmed from the bias and singling out of individuals due to their status as immigrants. When they state that their country of origin was something other than being born in the USA, if Sheriff Cantrell or anyone from his staff can tell this body that with 100% certainty, the individuals and families are not ripped apart or face deportation because of this program, then I will withdraw my objections now and going forward. If you can do that, thank you.
Further discussion? Any further discussion on item number 12? Seeing none, any public comments on item 12? Seeing none, Ms. Mason, will you please call the roll? I have a motion to pass item number 12 by Justice Ecke, a second by Justice Lyons.
Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Gary Ricker. Butch Pond. Coleman Taylor. David Wilson. Sean Simons. Kyle Lyons. Lisa Ecke. Charles Dean. Chandra Washington. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis.
That item carries. Yes?
Does it matter that we didn't have the, okay, there it is, thank you.
Item number 13. Counselor, will you read that by title only?
A resolution supporting the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act.
Justice Rios Stafford, would you like to introduce this?
Yes, thank you, Judge. This is a very simple resolution. Basically, this is non-binding to the Quorum Court. It doesn't change any of our ordinances. It doesn't change the way we're necessarily doing things. But it resolves that we recommit our support of the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act and that we support what you, the judge, have said that we are doing, which is ongoing and periodic FOIA training and education of all county staff and elected officials and custodians of records. I wanted to clarify a couple things, especially for folks who weren't here when I brought this forward 2 weeks ago. I originally wrote this resolution back when the Arkansas legislature was in special session, and there was concern that the legislature was going to make much more extensive changes to our FOIA laws than they actually did end up making. So there has been a lot of, because of this special session, there has been a lot of concern among our constituents and among people around the state about our FOIA laws and about where their elected officials stand on freedom of information. It doesn't obligate us in any way. It's simply a message to the public of where we stand as a county. And I know I heard, I heard some of my colleagues say 2 weeks ago, questioning, why maybe this was needed, because when we all are sworn into office, we swear to uphold the laws. And yes, that is true, but while we all uphold the laws, we don't upholding a law and supporting a law aren't necessarily the same thing. We lobby our elected officials in the state legislature all the time about changing or updating laws. So supporting and upholding aren't necessarily the same thing. So I also wanted to clarify, this resolution has nothing to do with the Freedom of Information lawsuits, the 2 lawsuits that the county lost, that the county, it looks like, are going to appeal. This takes absolutely no stance on that. It's not mentioned in this, and it really has nothing to do with that. And it really also has nothing to do with there has been a bipartisan movement since the legislature altered our Freedom of Information Act to put FOIA into our state constitution. Left and right have come together to try and work on a constitutional amendment. While I personally support those efforts, this resolution takes no stance on that. So I just wanted to make those things clear. And I also heard from the Greene County Republican Committee, who by coincidence unanimously passed a very similar resolution to this. In fact, theirs had stronger language than this, saying they're opposed to any further changes to FOIA. But really, that's just a coincidence, and it just shows that this is on the minds of a lot of folks across our state, regardless of where they stand on the political spectrum. So with that, I just want to make a motion to pass this resolution.
I have a motion to pass item number 13 by Justice Rios Stafford.
Second.
Second by Justice Taylor. Further discussion. Justice Dennis?
Thank you, Judge. I voted no against it the first time, but I'm glad to see the support that J.P. Rios Stafford is giving Governor Sanders, and I will vote for it this time. Thank you.
Justice Wilson?
I voted no when this was discussed a couple of weeks ago, and I have to remain in the no category. I don't have any trouble supporting the existing law. If freedom of information takes another form, if it's amended in the future, I don't have any trouble supporting what is determined at that time, because we're sworn to uphold the law. Any elected official should be able to say that with a good conscience. So my no vote is simply because the commitment's already there. If someone questions that, they don't have to vote for any one of us. But I think most voters understand who's willing to work according to the law and who may not be. And so I just don't think it's necessary. It kind of makes me feel like doing this, we have to jump through a hoop. But I don't really jump through hoops. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Wilson. Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge.
I'm sorry. I'm messing up these microphones right now, guys. Justice Lyons?
Thank you, Judge. Kind of aligned with my colleague just spoke, that I believe we all have this commitment. We all believe and support the FOIA. And I just don't think the resolution is necessary. Under this perspective, we really need to start marching resolutions through here that says we support the First Amendment of freedom of speech, we support freedom of religion, we support all of the Constitution of the state of Arkansas, we support all the laws of Arkansas. That's what we're here. We take an oath, that's the commitment we make. I just don't think it's needed, and I'll maintain my no vote at this point.
Thank you, Justice Lyons. Justice Dean?
Yeah, Judge, I'd like to make an amendment from time to time by the legislature. I'd like to add that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I wasn't tracking. Where's it?
From time to time by the legislature.
You're wanting,
It's on the, I'm sorry, it's now, therefore, be it resolved that the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas supports the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act as amended from time to time by the legislature. Yeah.
The amendment is on line 20, at the end of line 20, insert the words "as amended from time to time by the legislature."
I have a motion to amend per Justice Dean. A second, I believe I heard from Justice Dennis. Is that correct, sir? Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Amendment? Justice Pond? I'm sorry, Justice Washington. On the amendment?
Yes, thank
Okay.
you. Now, I was just wondering if we could get clarification on the change, just so we could have a better understanding of what we're going to vote on, or just the clarification of the addition of from time to time.
Counselor Lester, do you have anything on that?
Well, I had it on my notes. Give me just a sec here. The motion is to amend to add the language on line, at the end of line 20, at the end of the sentence on line 20, as amended from time to time by the legislature.
You want further clarification on the background of that?
Just the rationale.
Justice Dean, are you open to speak to that, of the rationale behind your? Justice Dean?
Yeah, it would just be at any time that the legislature changed the ruling, then the ruling here would also change.
Justice Pond, did you have discussion on the amendment, or were you waiting for the main motion?
I appreciate Justice Dean's amendment. It gives this, the whole intention of the resolution some purpose, some reason for us to have it. Otherwise, I couldn't see the point. I appreciate that being brought up. And I will be voting for the amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Justice Simons?
Thank you, Chair. I'm still a little unclear on the intent of the amendment. By adding the verbiage, at least in my mind, I don't want to pledge my support of a current law and then open it up to future changes as they may occur. I'd like to express my approval or disapproval at those times. I'd like to vote on whether or not I approve it as it stands in this current moment. But I don't really feel comfortable pledging my support to something that may or may not change and not knowing what those changes are. So again, I echo my colleagues' question of some clarification on the intent, if you're open to doing that again.
Justice Ecke?
Point of clarification, the motion on the floor is to amend, correct?
Yes, ma'am, to amend the language added by Justice Dean.
this would be a parliamentarian question, because I know that this can be rather nebulous in understanding. Is there any way you can separate the two and introduce one resolution and you vote on that one, and then you do the amendment is whether or not you accept that one? Can you separate the two since there is already a motion on the floor?
No.
Okay,
That's what we're
thank
hearing.
you.
Any other discussion or debate on the amendment? Justice Dennis, you want the debate on the amendment? Yes. Justice Dennis? Did I mess it up?
It's part of the resolution. It has no bearing either. I'm just happy that the sheriff's department will get overtime tonight, and that way we can spend some extra money. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Dennis. Any further discussion on the amendment? You didn't want the amendment. All right. All that, we have a motion to amend by Justice Dean, a second by Justice Dennis. All those in favor? Those opposed?
No.
Motion fails.
I'm sorry, I was waiting for your comment.
It wasn't on the amendment.
With that, we're back to the main motion. Justice Taylor?
Thank you, Judge. Regarding the resolution itself and in its pre-amended status, I agree with Justice Rio Stafford that this has made for some interesting bedfellows. This issue is obviously nonpartisan. It is important, I think, to all of us sitting here in multiple ways. Number one, in the fact that we're subject to FOIA in pretty much everything we do. If we're not, there are consequences to that. And number two, as citizens, I can't think of an instance in which we would not want more transparency in government. I literally cannot think of that. Like, nothing comes to mind in which I can think, oh, well, I wouldn't want government sharing that fact with me. That doesn't exist. And so to say that the resolution doesn't matter, that it's non-binding, all that, that's true. It's simply stating the position. The court over time has done that on certain issues, some of which, were a badge of honor, others of which, sort of just went to the wayside. This one has come up recently in the state. Some of us may have followed it, some of us didn't, but the coalitions that were formed through that, if you will, don't have anything to do with politics, but rather all of us being citizens and having the ability to see what's going on behind the curtain. And effectively, FOIA says there is no curtain. And so to support that seems fairly obvious to me. If we need to discuss it more, I'm happy to add my 2 cents, but I'm definitely in support of this.
Thank you, Justice Taylor. Any further discussion by the body? Justice Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. I'm not in support of this. A reason certain things have to be not made available to the public is personnel records, catastrophic leave, and anything else that has to do with it. That is not open to the public, and there's quite a few others that are not open to the public. I do have some issues with the language. One of them was on the first whereas, to ensure an open government by elevating transparency. I tell you what, we're number one. And we're number one, and we're number one, and we're number one. We're elevated to the highest status in the state. What do you want us to be elevated to? There's nothing to elevate. We're already there. Check, check. The other one is transparency so that citizens may be fully informed. Fully, completely, 100%, everything that we breathe in and breathe out, they have to know because we're public officials. I disagree with that. That's strong. Fully. What is the intent and the attitude and the mindset of that word? Fully. If you fully want to know, then run for public office. the workings of their government. We already are transparent. You already know. You attend meetings. You have the information. And if you have good relationships with elected officials, they will be more than happy to invite you into their office and get you the information that you're requesting. The other part in here, the actions of their public officials. What are you talking about, actions? What actions? Every action that I make, everybody has a right to know if I'm in my car, if I'm in the 5th floor, if I'm in the 3rd floor, if I'm talking to the county assessor, fully. So that's, I have a then going on to the last, therefore, let it be resolved, periodic FOIA training, which we have, education, which we have, either mandatory or voluntary by all county staff and elected officials. We have. Now, there's those that are just coming on board, and there's a lot that they have to learn. And that's a process. But just because we get a new HR director and we get a FOIA request and they've been on the job for 1 week and they fail to give you the information that you want, they've been with us for 1 week. Can you wait more than just 3 days? Or are you going to sue us because you didn't get it within 3 days and they've only been with us for 5? The training that elected officials have regarding FOIA, if you go to AAC conferences, we go over it every single time. Every time you're a newly elected official, the AAC makes sure that you know about FOIA. So this, to me, is redundant in what we're already doing. We already have processes. And to pass this and support this, Judge, I feel like we're saying we still aren't good enough, and it never will be good enough. And we just demand more until you're full to overflowing with all of this information. So I'm not in support of this because it's not clear the mindset or the attitude behind it. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice Ecke. Justice Lemming?
Call the question. Thank you.
Do I have a second on that? Second, but I have a motion to call the question by Justice Lemming, second by Justice Ricker. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? Ms. Mason, will you please call a roll? This is a roll to call the question.
Suki Hires? No. Evelyn Rios Stafford? Yes. Willie Lemming? Gary Ricker? Yes, ma'am. Butch Pond? Yes, ma'am. Coleman Taylor? Yes. David Wilson? Yes. Sean Simons? Kyle Lyons? Yes, Lisa Ecke? Yes. Charles Dean? Yes, ma'am. Chandra Washington? Yes. Beth Koger? No. Robert Dennis?
To call the question. Okay. Motion carries. With that, we're going to call the question. With that, we'll move directly to public comments. Do I have any public comments on item number 13?
Sherry Main, 15451 Riches Road, Fayetteville. This is a non-binding resolution. I don't know why we have to pick things apart in such detail. If we look at the definition for fully in a manner or degree is completely. So let's take fully out and put completely. They mean the same thing. And as far as new hires, I don't care if you've been on the job 1 day. You need this book and you need to read it. If you have access to FOIA information and I request it, you better know the rules. Even if you've only been here 1 day, that's important because FOIA has rules. And when you request information, that information has to be provided to you within a timeline. That's the whole point of having rules. So I don't know why this has to be such a big deal. It's basically stating that the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas supports the Arkansas Freedom of Information Act. If you don't support it, you don't believe it, vote no. If you do, vote yes. Thank you.
Public comments.
Thank you, Judge. I just want to address one last thing. The language
I know that we're very familiar with you, but you need
Evelyn,
to state your
I'm
name
sorry.
and where you're from.
Thank you. Justice of the Peace, Evelyn Rios Stafford from Fayetteville. Sorry about that. I just wanted to address the language that the intent of FOIA is to ensure an open government by elevating transparency so that citizens may be fully informed of the workings of their government and the actions of their public officials, which is in the first whereas of this resolution. Those are not my words. Those words come from our Arkansas Freedom of Information Handbook, and they were written by the Arkansas Attorney General. And so I just wanted to clarify that I didn't make those up. That's from here.
Public comments.
Gladys Tiffany, Fayetteville. I think that FOIA is a really interesting case to become so political, and it feels like something that that if we are thinking about democracy as an interaction between people and government instead of government being a dominator of people, it's real clear that transparency is a very important part of democracy, and I don't really understand how anybody who supports democracy can have very much trouble with FOIA. I think any public official who feels like they should not be subject to FOIA, maybe they don't need to be a public official. That's very, very difficult for me to understand how it happens that a public official would say that they do not support a FOIA amendment. So I really would like to see all of you vote very positively about this very simple amendment.
Thank you.
Or whatever it is.
Public comments. Ms. Mason, will you please call the roll?
Suki Hires. Yes. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Okay, Gary Ricker. Yes, ma'am. Butch Pond. Yes. Coleman Taylor. Yes. David Wilson. No. Sean Simons. Kyle Lyons. No, Lisa Ecke. Yes. Charles Dean. Yes. Chandra Washington. Yes. Beth Koger. Robert Dennis.
That motion carries. Last item on the report are committee reports. Those were submitted within the agenda packet, and with that, we're going to be adjourned.